1891 by Michael Wright. And there are three main rooms in the community centre. The Bert Stratton room, a local gentleman who donated his stamp collection to the hall. The Patrick Moore room, the famous astronomer, and the Duchess of Gloucester Hall, who actually opened the centre. On the roof is a cockerel, you can see it from a distance, that signifies the association in France. Saint Vigor, the road is named after Saint Vigor. We're going to go down by the surgery to Spring Lane, and we'll have a little stop by Frampton Close. Pathway to New Road. We're not going to go across any muddy paths across the playing field. Then we're going to go along New Road, the pavement along Main Road to the Malt House. But Spring Lane is called Spring Lane because of the springs coming down from the downs to the river down below. Before you could hear them, and most of the residents who are living here could hear the drains bump. And a little bit of interest in Spring Lane. At the beginning, and at Hill Lane, there are two of the old village road signs in green. Yes, you also mentioned that it improved. So hopefully we won't like them taken away and replaced by new signs, but those are the old traditional signs. Then Frampton Close, of the old Parish Clerk, well before my time. Yeah, or the very first parish. Yeah.
Lived in a tiny bungalow here.
Yeah.
Mr. Frampton. Mr. Frampton.
His lovely nose Mayor Frampton.
Further along on the right, just point out, is the Methodist Chapel, the foundation stone, 1865. The Rising Sun pub was mentioned in 1871, and further along is an old Victorian house, now Spring House. It was owned by a Winchester merchant. We'll carry along here, into the footpath, along into New Road. But first of all, I met this morning a gentleman who doesn't live in the village anymore. He lives in Fair Oak, but he used to live many years ago with Tony. Tony, just a few words.
They used to do the song, chopping up logs and all that sort of thing. The rain went from his right back to the back of those bungalows in New Road. That's where inside the grave went back. So that's why that is.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Area. There's a large house along here called St Kilda House. That's quite a nice new development of new homes. Still got a red telephone box in the village. I think it needs a coat of paint now, but it's still there.
Still functional.
So I used to live in there. Originally it was all one house. It's a semi-house.
And you mentioned the name Paddington, but in the churchyard there are many graves called Paddington the Builders in the older part of the churchyard. You can read the inscription, Paddington the Builders. Also planted in the churchyard. Donated to the village by the gentleman who lived in King Charles' cottage. The second part was acquired by the village. Then they tennis courts, 3 parts. Along Main Road, you've got the old village hall to the right, and a yard called Francis Yard, who built many of the homes and had interests in the gravel works in the village. And there's also the old shop and post office and the pub called the Black Horse. But we can pass those on the way. We're not going to stop along their way. We'll go straight along now to the Malt House, where Michael and Jenny will be welcoming us. And as I said, we'll be divided up, I think, into groups of about 6 or 7, and to have a look around the house and the garden. And they kindly have invited us for tea and coffee there as well, some refreshment. So we'll carry along New Road, into Main Road, and into the Malt. But Beryl Stratton, a relative, lives in this old house here. And I think Robin Orman, he showed his film, the community centre. He showed Beryl Stratton being married in the church, I think about the 1950s.
Yes, it's a lovely photo.
Yes.
And she still comes to church every Sunday night.
And,
yeah, after we go up.
and the further aside from the playing fields, that's the side of Colden Common Football Club. They played the Hampshire League. I think they've been quite successful in the past. And if you go into their clubhouse, when you have the voting elections, if your card is there, you see all the pennants on the wall from the club and from visiting clubs and when they've gone abroad on tours. If we hurry along here and we turn
refreshments. And the idea is that we will divide you into 3 groups, which Maureen has already done, for obvious reasons. It's quite a small house actually. One group will be down here having refreshments, so whichever group is first, to leave just a little bit for the others. And the second group will be guided by Jenny round the downstairs, and the third group will do the upstairs. I think I will ask that the groups doing upstairs divide into 2, and the reason for that is that we've never had as many as 8 or 9 people upstairs. Frankly, I don't know whether the floors could stand it. That's a serious comment. So that's how we'll organise it. A couple of essential things. There are 2 loos in the house. One is just here, near where you came in, and the other is upstairs in the bathroom, as you might expect. Most unlikely, but if there should be a fire while you're here, all the exit doors are open and unlocked, so all you have to do is find your way up. The way you came in is obviously an exit door. There's one in this room here, at the far side. There's another one just through the next room there. If you happen to be upstairs, all the windows have been unlocked. And, well, I hope it wouldn't happen. You jump, but there are conveniently placed hedges right under right. I sent Maureen a brief history of the house, which I imagine you send out to people, have you?
We've given it to the people who requested it.
Who requested it, right, okay.
And it will be available, you know, on email afterwards.
Oh, right.
And I can run copies off for you while you're here. But very, very briefly, we've lived here 37 years. We moved in 1977. We've worked closely with, as you can imagine, with a house like this, with the historic buildings people in Winchester. We've had a number of experts come and give their opinion about the house, and the opinion, the authoritative opinion seems to be that it dates from between 1580 and 1620, the house. This part of the house is only here to hold up the granny flat, which was built in 1981. Granny is no longer with us, and so, as is the way with empty granny flat, it is now a storeroom and a complete tip. So you will not be going up there. I think that's probably about it. If you have any questions at any time, do say. And if you know people, Maureen's told me there were about 10 people who wanted to come, but there simply wasn't space. And if you know anybody who wanted to come, we're very happy to run a repeat at some future time, hopefully in better weather. Yes, a couple of important words of warning. Wherever you go in this house, just look at that doorway. Mind your head, and there's a step down. And that applies to virtually every room. Upstairs, it's actually quite hilly. And the floors do that, as you'll see. So please be very, very careful. Those of you who would like... Oh, yes. Another thing I suggest is that we all complete the walk around the inside first, and then when you're all ready to go, as it were, I think that's the time to walk around the garden. So if you do get muddy boots, you'll be taking them home rather than but outside there is an external cellar, because at one time, perhaps obvious from the name of the house, the Malt House, it was used as a brewery by the Young family. There were a lot of small breweries in this area. There's one in Twyford, also run by the Young family. And there is an external cellar where they would have stored the beer. It was also used, as rumour has it, as an additional air raid shelter during the Second World War for the village. Now, you're welcome to go down in the cellar. I've put a light down there, and George and Julia have already paid for their keep by making the very sensible suggestion of laying some duckboards on the bare earth. I suggest that probably you go down no more than 10 at a time, because then you can stand on the duckboards. The earth is permanently damp, as you'd expect with an underground cellar. Be very, very careful as you go down. They are old brick steps. We are about to have them renovated, but we haven't had them renovated yet. And they are firm, but very rough. So do be careful as you go down the steps.
And when you say renovate?
Down the fireplace, up to the upstairs. Those of you who are tall, you need to mind your heads on the beams. So if you want to follow me upstairs, and you'll see that.
Do this afterwards, I think. Yeah.
We have this in Leicestershire on the wall.
Not Leicester.
Notice on the wall behind you the flint, part, which is part of the construction. So on your left there is the French. And again, this is fairly typical of Hampshire houses of that period, with timber construction interspersed with brick and flints.
Sorry, can I?
Okay. This will be the test as to whether the floors can stand this number of people, but right. When we first moved, we started to decorate this room, and the wall over there, we pulled wallpaper off. Okay, you might expect plaster to come away, but not only the plaster, but some bricks came away as well. And we had to virtually rebuild, or we had to have rebuilt that part of the wall. If you notice the floor, other floors in the upstairs of the house are lovely old oak floorboards, as you'll see in a moment. When we came here, this was already softwood. Presumably, originally it had been oak floor, but it was already softwood. It was a sort of jigsaw puzzle, all sort of a mishmash, and that was rotten, so we had to replace it. And the sort of general rule that the historic environment people now, as they are called, the heritage people at Winchester impose, is that you replace like with like. So if you've got original oak boards, you have to replace them with oak boards. If this was softwood as it was, then you can replace it with softwood. If we had unlimited money, it would have been nice to replace with oak.
There's a lovely place in Romsey that
In this part of the house anyway, are simply tree trunks or boughs of trees. And so the shape of the house corresponds to the boughs of the trees.
So did you put the ceiling in? This one?
No. That was already here. This is fibreboard.
Yeah.
All fibreboard. Yeah. No, that was we painted it, but we haven't touched it.
But the beams. Oh,
I don't. We have sometimes considered getting a floor with with oak, and as you can see further along here, they do literally weather down a state of semi decoration.
On my paper, I should finish this off for you.
thinking a bit slow there.
I have done most of this room. I've deliberately left that wall because, although we lived here for 37 years, we haven't yet got round to stripping the paint off that lovely old cast iron fireplace, which is 1880s or 1890s. And I shall be doing that. If you've ever done paint stripping, you will know that that will be a very, very long job.
Yeah.
And there was no point in decorating that wall until I did. Having left it undecorated, it's interesting, I think, and you probably find this in any old house, what a patchwork the plaster is. Hello, Maureen. We don't know for sure, but this part of the original part of the house probably finished here. This part of the house, underneath, might have been a byre or a stable where they kept the animals. And we've got a picture in one of our books about cottages of exactly that situation. We think it was a stable, and as I mentioned in the write-up that some of you will have seen, part of the evidence for that is that when the floor had to be replaced, it was rotten when we moved in, and underneath the floorboards, when the floorboards were taken up, the builder upset a bucket of water, and for weeks afterwards there was a very strong smell of urine in the room, presumably animal urine, reconstituted because the water had that effect on it. Another reason why we think that was the case was because that wall, even though it may look old, is a cavity wall, and cavity walls didn't come in until the latter half of the 19th century. So, as I say, where you're standing, and these boards, I think they're pine, they're relatively modern. So that is yet more evidence that this was a later addition to the house. In fact, if we put this light on.
And your windows are in keeping as well with the rest of the house. Yeah.
The windows were right. Those of you who've seen the write-up I did, when we look today at the surveyor's report when we bought this house, we were utterly mad to have bought it. It was falling down. It really was. And the old windows they are oak framed windows that we put in. The old windows were rotten, and the whole weight of the roof was resting on rotten wooden lintels, and they were doing that. They were bowed. As I say, we were totally mad, but we haven't had a moment's regret. Our children grew up here, and we love the place.
Maybe Waterland door.
So the Lars, which were then the...
I think it'd be on the outside, on the vertical wall.
Okay.
I think
Followed on from the same principle afterwards, I would
it was
think.
much easier, I imagine. It was much easier to plaster those than it was the old bottom, because they must have been rather similar to some of these bits of wood here. They've been all over the place.
Yes, yes indeed.
Bring back to your
That's a good point.
Have you looked at the smoking room? Yeah. If you go in and look up to the right, mind your head, up to the right, you need to probably shield your eyes as well. Up to the right. That way. And,
priest hole. Priest hole.
Oh, it's supposed to be. Oh yeah, sorry.
Here we go.
Sorry, we're going through this.
Carry the wine.
two things in this from
The actual boiling up.
Oh yes.
Fun, wouldn't it? Yes. Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, throw a few puddles, that's absolutely right.
no, fine,
Yes, you'll have a coffee. That's the spare one that came from the first one.
Oh, fine.
Jenny, was the table, kitchen table here when you...
No, good.
It's lovely.
woodworm did it work here?
Well,
Is it right? Is that all right today?
Come out there, that's healthy, thank you. Yeah, just got your... Thank you, John, that's lovely.
Right.
I'll just do a pan round so we can see where I've come from. Oh, that's right, you're all right. There we go, that's the gist of what it's all about. Oh, there's some gates. Yeah, you see that train as well?
yeah. Mind you, I suppose it's because of the wind. It's such a shame.
Thanks very much.
Two for the cat and one for the other. Sugar. Is that right? Two
So
for the cat,
one
for
sugar
the
for
other.
the one sugar in there.
No, two for the cat and one in the other.
Really?
That's what they said.
Nick, no, that's
So Nick never has sugar, and the other chap always has one
No,
sugar.
that kept hit. I said, none in that, the other one. He said, sugar. I said, one? Yes.
one sugar, yeah.
One.
One question. Yeah, sure. You know, you think you for the salad?
digestive.
Chocolate ones, yeah.
Right, there's some more here.
The dresser.
Oh, that's digestive. Yeah, well, that's